I'm not the kind of person who likes stirring up drama. I'm not confrontational by nature, but I do believe in drawing lines when necessary. So when I found myself in the middle of a heated Easter dinner conversation, being called cruel and greedy, I knew it was time to be brutally honest. Not because I enjoy it, but because someone had to speak the truth no one else had the courage to voice. My brother has been dating Sarah for the past 2 years. He proposed to her a couple of months ago, and while we congratulated him and tried, to be polite, I wouldn't say any of us, the rest of the family I mean, felt particularly close to Sarah. She's always been fine, polite, smiling in that overly sweet, always watching way that makes you wonder what's going on beneath the surface. Her 2 kids from a previous relationship, a boy and a girl, are generally well-behaved and don't really cause trouble, though they've never been over at our place, and we've never had them join us for any family events. It's not that we excluded them. It's that they were never invited by Sarah or my brother. We're cordial, that's it, and I was fine keeping it that way. But apparently, Sarah had other expectations. My parents and I had discussed this issue long before the engagement even happened. We're a close-knit family, and we're pretty traditional when it comes to inheritance. My parents made it very clear that their assets, houses, savings, businesses will be passed on only to their biological grandchildren. And I agree with that. It's not about cruelty or exclusion. It's about bloodline and fairness. If my brother and I are going to raise our own children, we want to be sure that what's rightfully theirs stays in their hands. No confusion, no unnecessary dilution. So when my brother proposed a prenup to Sarah that clearly laid out those terms, I thought it was a smart, adult move. Not everyone likes prenups. But let's be real. When you're entering a marriage, where one person has children from a previous relationship, clarity matters. You need to protect what's yours and draw boundaries. We thought the matter had been settled quietly, but Sarah had other plans. Easter dinner at my parents' house was supposed to be a relaxed event. Good food, casual conversation, some light teasing, and laughter. My partner was there, along with my brother and Sarah, though her kids were spending the weekend with their father. Everything seemed normal until Sarah, halfway through dinner, dropped her fork, turned to us with that sugary voice of hers and said, "So, I think we need to talk about this prenup situation." The air went still. My brother froze, mid-bite. My parents glanced at each other in quiet alarm. I took a sip of water, immediately bracing myself for what I knew was coming. Sarah proceeded to explain, in the most calm and controlled tone possible, that she was hurt and disappointed by my brother's insistence on a prenup. She said it, was demeaning, and made her feel like she and her kids were outsiders. She wanted clarification on what family assets meant and who exactly was being considered family. My brother tried to diffuse it. He told her again what he'd already explained in private, that the prenup wasn't personal, that it was about protecting generational wealth, and that our parents wanted to ensure their legacy remained within their bloodline. Sarah wasn't having it. She kept pushing, saying that once she and my brother were married, her kids would be part of his family, and that they deserved the same treatment as any future children they might have together. That's when I stepped in. I asked her calmly, "Do your kids receive anything from your ex-husband's parents? Are they including your future kids with my brother in their inheritance?" She paused and said no, obviously not. "Exactly," I replied. "Then why would you expect our family to treat your children like heirs? Just because you're marrying my brother doesn't mean our entire family suddenly owes your kids a future." She looked stunned. The air had shifted. I could tell my brother was getting anxious. My parents were dead silent, but they didn't interrupt, which meant they agreed with me but didn't want to be the ones to say it out loud. Sarah accused us of treating her children like strangers. I countered that they are strangers to our legacy. That doesn't mean we dislike them. That doesn't mean we won't be polite. But inheritance is about more than just pleasantries and shared dinners. It's about lineage. It's about continuity. She kept saying that family means family, and I kept pushing back. "Do you expect to share your own inheritance with your cousins?" I asked. "Just because they're family? Do your parents expect to leave money to your stepkids instead of your actual grandchildren?" "No? Then don't act like this is about morality." My partner reached over and squeezed my hand under the table. I knew I was coming off a little harsh, but I was sick of pretending. Sarah clearly came to that dinner with an agenda. She knew. The prenup was non-negotiable. She knew our family's stance. But instead of respecting that, she tried to guilt trip us into giving her kids a slice of something they had no rightful claim to. That's what infuriated me. Not the request, but the entitlement. The belief that she could change the terms of our family legacy just because she managed to get a ring. She kept going, saying she needed this issue resolved once and for all. I told her, from where we stand, everything is resolved. It's only you who can't seem to accept the answer. The conversation was no longer calm. My brother asked her to stop, pleaded with her to just enjoy the dinner and revisit the topic another time. But Sarah wouldn't let it go. She called us greedy, cold-hearted, cruel to children. I snapped. I told her to deal with it. I said, no one here is obligated to build a future for your kids. That's your responsibility, not ours. You want your kids to inherit something? Work your ass off and build your own legacy. But don't expect a free ride from us. Her face changed completely. That mask of polite sweetness dropped, and for a moment, I saw the cold calculation behind her eyes. I knew in that instant that she didn't just disagree. She resented us. She wasn't here to find a compromise. She was here to make demands, and when we said no, she showed her true face. After that dinner, the tension between Sarah and our family grew thicker than fog. My brother tried to play peacemaker, insisting to everyone that it was just a misunderstanding, that Sarah was emotional, and that things would smooth over in time. But I could see it clearly. He was cornered. He was trying to balance loyalty to us with his desire to build a life with her, and Sarah was testing how far she could push that line. She didn't apologize. She didn't even attempt to clarify. Her words. In fact, 2 days after Easter, she texted me a long message that started off sounding like an olive branch and ended up being another passive-aggressive demand for fairness, generosity, and open-hearted family values. According to her, I lacked empathy, maturity, and decency. She said I had no right to speak to her like I did in front of my parents, and that she hoped my future children wouldn't suffer for the coldness I carry in my heart. That was the moment I knew she wasn't just hurt. She was calculating. She had spun a narrative in her head where she and her children were victims of our prejudice, and we were the villains hoarding our wealth like dragons. And she was trying to guilt her way into our legacy, one manipulative move at a time. I didn't respond to her message. I showed it to my parents instead. My father read it slowly, then handed it back to me without a word. My mother looked at my brother, who sat there with his head down, and asked him if this is really the kind of energy he wants to invite into our lives permanently. He didn't answer. He didn't defend her. He just stared at the floor. I think a part of him knew. Maybe he had known all along, but Sarah was beautiful, charming when she wanted to be, and fiercely protective of her children. And I get it. He probably admired that. But what she didn't seem to understand was that our family operates differently. We don't fold under guilt. We don't give away our hard-earned future just because someone cries loudly enough. We give respect where it's earned and love where it's genuine. Sarah wanted the rewards of family without actually becoming family. She thought that by marrying my brother, her kids would inherit not just his love but also his legacy, and ours too. But marriage doesn't rewrite bloodlines. It doesn't automatically entitle your children from another man to inherit from people they've never built a relationship with. We hadn't gone on family vacations together. We hadn't celebrated holidays as one big unit. We didn't have birthday memories, hospital visits, babysitting weekends, none of it. And yet, here she was, expecting to be handed the same inheritance our future children would receive, simply because she wore the same last name. The arrogance of it made my blood boil. A week later, I decided to call Sarah, not to fight, not to argue, but to lay things out plainly, without emotion, without the pressure of an audience. She picked up with a clipped hello. I told her, look, I understand you love your children, and I respect that, but you have to stop expecting other people to do for them what you're responsible for. You're marrying my brother. That doesn't mean you're marrying into our inheritance. She scoffed. So you're telling me they'll never get anything? Not even if we're a family for years? That's exactly what I'm telling you, I replied. Because we've already decided this as a family. Our inheritance goes to our biological children. Period. My brother is free to spend his own money on his stepchildren. No one's stopping him. But what comes from our parents, from our bloodline, it's not up for debate. She accused me of being heartless again. She said I was excluding innocent children for something they had no control over. I told her, innocence doesn't equate to entitlement. Your kids didn't choose their situation, true, but that doesn't mean the world owes them equal footing everywhere. Life isn't balanced, and part of being a good parent is preparing your kids for that truth. You don't get to secure their future by hijacking someone else's legacy. Her voice rose. Hijacking? Wow. You really think that's what I'm doing? Yes, I said. You didn't come into this relationship trying to blend families. You came trying to stake a claim, and we see it. There was silence on the line. A heavy, suffocating pause. Then she said something I won't forget. You can fight this all you want, but if we get married and have children of our own, and those children are treated differently than mine, I will never forgive your family. And that was it. That was the moment I knew Sarah wasn't just trying to protect her kids. She was using them as leverage. It was an emotional hostage situation. She wanted guarantees, not love. Entitlements, not acceptance. She didn't just want to be part of the family. She wanted control over how we defined it. After that call, I told my brother everything. Word for word, he didn't get angry. He just sighed, long and tired. I'm trying to keep everyone happy, he said. But that's not going to happen. I looked him in the eyes and told him what our parents wouldn't. You can marry her. That's your choice. But don't ever let her convince you that your family is wrong for protecting its future. And don't let her rewrite what family means for us. That night, my brother slept at our parents' house. He said he needed space. I think deep down, he was beginning to question the foundation of the life he was about to build. I don't blame him. Sarah is the kind of woman who wraps control in silk ribbons. She's not evil. But she's entitled. And entitled people don't see boundaries. They see obstacles. And when you tell them no, they don't reflect. They retaliate. The weeks that followed were oddly quiet. My brother had returned to his apartment, but the atmosphere between him and Sarah had shifted. The tension had sunk beneath the surface like a dormant volcano. Silent, but undeniably active. Whenever we talked, his voice carried that weight, like someone dragging a bag of rocks everywhere they went. He tried to pretend things were normal, but I knew better. When people are being pulled in two directions, it shows. Sarah hadn't spoken to me directly since our phone call. I assumed she was waiting for my brother to step in and defend her, to do the emotional lifting she couldn't do herself anymore. But my brother had stopped bringing her to family events. He stopped mentioning her altogether. And that spoke louder than anything else. Then one day I got a call from Sarah. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity won. She started off surprisingly calm, almost formal. She said she wanted to apologize for how Easter went down. She admitted she was hurt and reacted badly, that she wasn't used to dealing with families who were so tightly bound and clear-cut about legacies. I could have softened in that moment, but I didn't, because I knew what was coming. She wasn't calling to make peace. She was calling to make a final play. I need you to understand something, she said. I'm not trying to take anything from your family. I just want my kids to be seen, to be treated with dignity, to know they belong. I let her speak. I listened without interrupting. Then, I asked her, do you think belonging is the same as inheriting? She hesitated. No, but I think being constantly reminded they aren't really family. That's cruel. And who's reminding them? I asked. Have my parents ever excluded them, refused to feed them, refused to invite them to a gathering? She went quiet. No, she admitted. But you said they'll never receive anything. That they'll never be equals. Because they're not, I said bluntly. Not in terms of bloodline, not in terms of legacy. And I won't lie to them about it, and I won't lie to you. That was when her calm snapped. She launched into accusations. that we were archaic, money-obsessed, heartless, that her children would grow up knowing that no matter how hard they tried, they were never good enough for us, that we were building walls instead of bridges. I told her those walls exist for a reason, to protect what generations have built, not to exclude out of malice. We're not cruel. We're clear. And clarity gets mistaken for cruelty by those who believe entitlement is a virtue. The call ended with her in tears and me in silence. Not because I regretted anything I said, but because I knew this wouldn't be the last time she tried to twist the narrative. The next time I saw my brother, he looked more tired than I'd ever seen him. He sat me down and asked me a question that caught me off guard. What if I sign everything over to her? What if I give her everything I have just to end this? I stared at him, stunned. You'd do that? I don't know, he whispered. Maybe. I'm so tired. Every day feels like a negotiation. Every decision feels like a trap. She wants guarantees. Not love, not trust. Guarantees. And I can't live like this. That was the moment I realized he was drowning. Not in hatred, not in manipulation, but in guilt. He loved those kids. He wanted to be the kind of man who stepped up, who filled the gaps their biological father had left. And Sarah was leveraging that love to mold him into a provider for her dreams. You can love those kids, I told him. You can help raise them, teach them, guide them. But don't confuse parenting with replacing. Don't confuse affection with inheritance. You are not their father. You are their stepfather. And while that role is noble, it's not the same. It never will be. He didn't speak. He just nodded slowly, eyes glistening with the weight of 1,000 unsaid thoughts. The following weekend, he came to our parents' house alone. No Sarah, no calls, no explanations. He just sat down at the dinner table and quietly passed the potatoes like nothing had changed. But everything had. My mother gently asked him, "Is everything all right?" And he simply said, "For the first time in a while, it will be." I don't know what he said to Sarah. I don't know what boundaries were redrawn or what decisions were made, but something shifted that week, and I could feel it in the silence he carried, a silence that felt less like suppression and more like resolution. A few days later, I received a message from Sarah. Just one line. "You got what you wanted." I didn't respond, because this was never about what I wanted. It was about what was right, about what was fair, and about protecting the integrity of a family that wasn't built on guilt or obligation, but on honesty and strength. If she couldn't understand that, then maybe she was never meant to be part of it to begin with. Months passed. Sarah remained engaged to my brother, but their relationship transformed into something colder, more formal. They went through the motions of wedding planning, but it felt like ticking boxes rather than building a life. Whenever we gathered as a family, Sarah's absence grew louder than her presence ever had been. She smiled less. She spoke less. And the few times her kids came around, they acted cautious, guarded, like they'd been coached to view us as adversaries, rather than family. It was a sadness I hadn't anticipated, but I reminded myself it wasn't my burden to fix. We had drawn the boundaries respectfully, clearly, and she had decided to turn them into battle lines. My brother became a man divided, half tethered to a commitment he no longer believed in, and half desperate to honor the loyalty he had once promised. One evening he called me out of the blue. No preamble, no explanation. Just 4 words that hit me harder than any long conversation could have. I ended it today. I sat silently, waiting. He said he realized he was marrying out of fear, not love. Fear of being the villain. Fear of letting down her kids. Fear of being seen as a bad man if he didn't bend to her expectations. But no marriage can survive when one person is bartering guilt instead of offering love. He told me he wanted a future where love wasn't conditional, where giving wasn't expected, but cherished. Where family meant chosen loyalty, not coerced obligation. I told him simply that I was proud of him, that choosing hard clarity over comfortable illusion takes strength most people never find. The wedding was called off. Sarah moved out. She sent no goodbyes, no dramatic speeches. just a quiet erasure, like she'd never been a part of his story. In the weeks that followed, my brother smiled more, laughed more, lived more. It wasn't easy. Grief doesn't just vanish because it's justified. But he rebuilt himself, piece by piece, stronger and freer than before. And as for me, I never apologized for that Easter confrontation. I never apologized for defending our family's right to protect its legacy. Because love should never come with a price tag. Family should never be something you negotiate for in whispered deals and backroom guilt trips. If standing up for that made me cruel in her eyes, then so be it. I would rather be called cruel for telling the truth than praised for selling a lie. Some truths are uncomfortable, some boundaries are unpopular, but in the end, they are the only things that keep love honest, family strong, and hearts free.